Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My brothers and sisters, I hope you're well. I know you are at home with your families and friends. And of course, you are enjoying your time that you're spending in building relationship, deepening your understanding of each other, love, affection, time that you spend. These are all quality times. And may Allah make it better and more fruitful and long-lasting, inshallah. Let's convert this terrible COVID-19 pandemic into a strength for our communities, but most importantly, our families. Today, I'd like to talk about racism around the world. I know you've been listening to it left, right, and center. I know you've been hearing about it from everybody. Why am I addressing it again? Well, it is important that we keep on mentioning the truth. Allah Azza wa Jalla in the Quran very beautifully says, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa unsa, wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ila lita'arafu, inna akramakum 'inda Allahi atqakum. O humanity, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum, we created you, min dhakarin wa unsa, from a man and a female, and a woman, of course, in a pair and a partnership. And then he says, wa ja'alnakum shu'uban wa qaba'ila lita'arafu, created you into nations and tribes. Why? Lita'arafu, so you'll get to know one another. In akramakum 'inda Allahi atqakum, the best amongst you is the one who is most honorable in their conduct, in their behavior. The one who is most amazing with their character. That's what this verse literally means. My brothers and sisters, we as human beings, we are all the same. Whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're Arab, whether you're Asian, American, African, European, Australian, Chinese, Mongolian, Russian, it doesn't matter where you come from. Islam says very clearly, you are the same. You are a human being. You are a human being. You belong to one single race called the human race. And there is no distinction between one race to the other race in Islam. And there should not be any in any other faith, any other culture or tradition. Unfortunately, we have seen a proliferation of racism, prejudice, and bigotry dominating many of our country's narratives, especially institutions. In America, what happened a few weeks ago with George Floyd's murder, when a police officer placed his knee on George Floyd for as long as 8 long minutes, and the man died in that process, suffocated, strangled to death by the knee of a police officer. Tragedy, indeed. Barbaric, of course. But underneath it all, there lies a deep racism that we need to unpack, we need to discuss, debate, and find solutions. Let me cite you a couple of stories from the life of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his mosque was sitting with his companions when a stranger, a traveler, walked into the mosque. He is not from the local community. He looked around and he said, "Oh people, I understand why Muhammad would bring Aus and Khazraj from different tribes together because they're Arabs after all. But why does he have a European in his midst?" Talking about Suhail al-Rumi, Suhail the Roman. Why does he have a black man amongst his congregation? Talking about Bilal, the mu'adhin of Islam, because he was from Africa and he was dark. Talking about Salman al-Farisi, Salman the Persian. Prophet ﷺ was very, very upset when he heard these comments. He got up and he addressed everybody. He said, "All people, remember, you're all children of Adam. You're all made out of soil. You come from soil and you'll return to this soil." My brothers and sisters, racism is sickness of mind and attitude. Racism is when you think your race is superior because of your color, skin color this is. Racism is when you feel you're superior because of your culture, your language, the food that you eat, the clothes that you wear, the expressions that you use. When you think you're superior, that's when you become racist. And all forms of racism is sickness of mind and sickness in attitude. And it must be eradicated from our society, and it must be eradicated now. Another story, Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam's companion, Abu Dhar radiallahu anhu, very prominent man, very nice, very noble, very humble, yet as a human being, once he made a mistake. He called Bilal by a derogatory name. He said, "Oh Bilal, you are son of a black woman," in a very deriding, very mean, very terrible way, in a way that is racism, of course, through and through. There is no doubt about it. Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam heard Abu Dhar's words and he became very upset. He said to Abu Dhar, "Oh Abu Dhar, what came out of your mouth is nothing but full of ignorance." In other words, you have racism in your language, in your mind, in your attitude, oh Abu Dhar. Abu Dhar felt so humiliated, so upset, so remorseful that he fell on the floor immediately. He placed one side of his face, his cheek, on. Abu Dhar was so upset that he insulted his brother Bilal. He told, "Oh Bilal, please step on my face. Punish me for what I've just done." Of course, Bilal didn't do that. My brothers and sisters, racism is so unacceptable. It's so deeply offensive. It's so debilitating for the person who is at the receiving end. You cannot even begin to describe this. When I was younger, I still remember growing up in the East End of London. In our council flat where we used to live in the 70s and 80s, our neighbors used to let their dog loose whenever we came out of our school, whenever we came out of our houses going to school or coming back from our school. And his dog used to chase us all around. I still remember when they used to throw rubbish in front of our doors, throw stones through our window. I still remember sitting in my dad's car when bricks had landed on the windscreen of his car, breaking the car windscreen into pieces, and I'm inside, injured, cut, and bleeding. Such experience would never go away from anyone who has experienced racism in their life. It would never. Imagine black people who live in America, or even in this country, in our country, in the UK, or anywhere in the world, are discriminated because they're black. Brown people are discriminated because they're brown. Chinese people are discriminated because they're Chinese. This must be eradicated from our society as soon as possible. I want to make a few things quite very clear from the outset. Brothers and sisters, the deep-rooted racism that we see in our society today stems from, and it became institutional as a result of, colonization. When European countries went around the world, looting, plundering, occupying other people's land, distributing other people's land and property to themselves, enslaving people. Racism must be rooted from our society at any cost. If racism exists in our institutions, we must challenge them. If racism exists in our parliament, we must root them out. If racism exists in our media, in our institutions, we have to address and destroy them as soon as possible. So racism began and got itself so rooted in the psyche of the Europeans from the time of colonial projects. In Asia, they colonized, they looted, plundered, and destroyed entire subcontinent. Pakistan, Bangladesh, and India, as known now, was one country. British went and destroyed it. They ruled it. They sucked the blood out of the country, wealth and resources. Trillions of dollars in today's count would have been stolen from those countries. In Africa, they went and they colonized. They not only colonized, but they enslaved black people. They boarded them on their ships, chained by their necks, their wrists, waist, and legs. And many a times, when those ships got into trouble because of bad weather, they were thrown overboard, right into the depth of the sea. And they died in that process. Many died while transporting them from Africa into Europe and selling them on in different parts of the world. Such disgraceful, despicable, inhumane treatment of human beings had never been witnessed in history before, as it was during the time of colonizers going around the world, destroying in the name of civilizing mission. They were just looting. They were thieves looting the wealth of the local indigenous people. Colonization began then. And you know what, brothers and sisters? America was founded on a deep belief on race, of the white Europeans being superior to the indigenous American people. Millions of people from America and Canada and Australia were wiped out because white Europeans decided to occupy their land and call it their own home. Racism was there then, and in those countries racism still lurks. When will we end such bigotry and racism? Only when we will end such mindset that my race is superior, I'm more entitled to anything in this world than anybody else. Whenever I think about the colonial history, my blood boils. I feel so angry and enraged. Are you surprised that people of Bristol, people of Bath, people of Liverpool, people of London, and all around the world are outraged when they see the statue, when they see the plaques of slave traders, those who bought and sold human beings, those who shot and killed and executed people because they were black, those who offloaded human beings from their ship because they were just extra load. Can you imagine there are plaques and statues in their honor we're still having in our own country in the UK and in America and other parts of the world? It's a disgrace. They should all be removed as soon as possible. We need to rewrite our history. History has been written by colonial masters. It needs to be rewritten. It needs to be written, including in that history, there should be a perspective from those whose lands were colonized, those who were enslaved, those who experienced genocide and mass murder and destruction of their wealth and their property. History should also give their perspective, not just the perspective of the colonial masters who still dominate. History needs to be rewritten. We need to own up to the ugly truth of our past, our European past, the activities of the colonial masters, whether they come from Spain or Portugal or Dutch or Britain, or they come from Italy, whoever it comes from, and wherever they are now settled, whether in America or UK or Australia or New Zealand or Canada, we must tell the truth about what happened and how these colonizers destroyed human civilization, country, nation, people after people. If you study the French history of their colonial experiment in North Africa, you will be appalled, you will be horrified. It's just beyond description. I don't have enough English language within my vocabulary to be able to describe to you the horror faced by the North Africans. And guess what? North Africans still experience the legacy of colonial past. The Asians still experience the legacy of colonial past. Middle East still experiences the legacy of colonial past. Africa still experiences the same. Do you know why? Because the powerful countries of the world, who were the colonizers, who are now the richer, the more powerful, the most stable countries in the world, they still support, aid and abet. They still supply weapons. They still supply intelligence. They still prop up dictators and despots and illegitimate regimes across the globe, in Asia, in Africa, in Arab world, in South America, because those puppets, those illegitimate governments would do our European bidding. Disgraceful. Those racism, that's foreign policy embedded in racism. Our economic ill distribution of wealth based on racism. Our political system based on racism. Take the example of United Nations. 5 permanent members occupy the space because they're stronger than anybody else. Apparently, the stronger and mightier you are, the more worthy and rightful you have to have a veto in the United Nations Security Council. What a load of rubbish. Every nation must be treated equally. Otherwise, there is racism. So Islam's solution to racism is simple. Allah says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Allah has honored all children of Adam. Allah says He has created all children of Adam as His representatives on this earth. Allah says in the Quran, He has made human beings in the best of forms, no matter what color they have, no matter how tall, what height they have, whether they're blonde, whether they're curly haired, whether they're brown haired, whether they're fair skinned or dark skinned, they're all made in the best fashion. Allah says in the Quran, all human beings have been created with freedom to live and be at liberty to do as they please. This earth is theirs and they can do as they like as long as they're not causing harm to other people. Allah says in the Quran, we're all brothers and sisters in humanity. We all belong to the same race called human race. When Rasul ﷺ gave one of his last speeches, in which he said, all of you are children of Adam. An Arab does not have superiority over non-Arab, nor does a non-Arab have any superiority over an Arab. Black over white or white over black. All of you are equal in the eyes of Allah. That's how Islam deals a blow to racism. In Islam, there is no space for racism. Anyone who is racist cannot be Muslim. Yes, mark my word. If you are racist in your words, in your action, in your behavior, in your perception, in your outlook to life, you are not a Muslim. You cannot be racist and be a Muslim at the same time, because racism contradicts the essence of Allah's creation. It contradicts the design of Allah's creation. It contradicts the purpose of Allah's creation. It contradicts the very nature of human. You can't claim to be a Muslim and be racist at the same time. When Malcolm X went to perform Hajj, he immediately wrote, what America needs is Islam, because I have slept in the same room, on the same floor, ate from the same plate, walked with the same people on the same road, wearing exactly the same clothing as my next brother, whether they're blue-eyed, fair-skinned, blonde or black or dark-coloured or brown, they're all the same. What we need to see in America is Islam. That's what Malcolm X said. Ladies and gentlemen, this sickness can be eradicated if our philosophy changes. And the best philosophy to eradicate racism is Islam. And you have it. You're a Muslim. You believe in Islam. So stop racism within the Muslim society. Don't look down upon one another. You're Pakistani and you're Bengali, you don't like one another. Get over it and love one another, because you are the creations of Allah. You are Arab and you don't like those who are non-Arab. What's the problem with you? Everyone else is the same as you. You're African, you think you are better than the Chinese. What's the matter with you? You are white, European, and you think you are superior to the rest of the world. You need a brain surgery if that's how you think. I know I'm being very strong here. In my life, in my vocabulary, racism has no space. Guess what, brothers and sisters, I'm going to suggest to you? A radical change in our attitude. One of the most prolific way of destroying racism is by cross-cultural marriages. Get married to people of different races. Get married to people of different color. Get married to people who come from a different country, different continent. You create United Nations of colors and cultures and languages and diversity in your family. That is the best way to destroy racism. So, to finish off, racism has no space in Islam. A true Muslim cannot be racist. And if you have racism in your mind, something is wrong. We need to do everything possible, ladies and gentlemen, to put our past wrong right as soon as possible by rewriting history, by teaching our children the true impact of colonialism, by apologizing. Europeans should apologize to the world for their racist philosophy and their racist mantra that destroyed the world, and it is still dominating the world today. Europeans should compensate for the losses of those people that they enslaved and those land and countries that they made their colonial homes. We must change our institutions. We must begin a complete overhaul of everything that is around us. Racism is sickness of mind, sickness of attitude, and it must be eradicated as soon as possible. May Allah protect us all from racism. May Allah unite us all, regardless of our color, our ethnicity, our language, or our background. May Allah make this human race realize that they all belong to the same race called the human race. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.